It's something we see literally every single day, but we hardly ever stop to think about where it came from. I'm talking about the wheel. And in this explainer, we're going to dive into how its story started, not with speed or racing, but with a simple, practical need to just move heavy stuff. So, let me ask you a question. What's the single most important invention ever? I mean, a lot of people might say fire, or maybe writing. And yeah, of course, those are huge. But what if the real answer was something a little more down to earth? A practical tool that literally got civilization rolling? That's right. We're not talking about some grand, abstract idea. We're talking about a brilliant piece of engineering that solved a very real, everyday problem. This was the invention that would help build cities, feed entire populations, and power economies. And it all kicked off in ancient Mesopotamia. Okay, so to really get how big of a deal the wheel was, we first have to imagine a world without it. A world where the force of friction is this constant, nagging enemy, fighting you every single step of the way. Moving anything heavy over land was just an enormous challenge. I mean, before the wheel, what could you do? Well, you could carry something yourself, strap it to your back, maybe load it onto a donkey, or try to drag it on some kind of sledge. And yeah, sure, those methods kinda work, but they all have some major limitations. There's only so much you can carry, and dragging things, well, that takes a ridiculous amount of effort. And this right here, this gets to the absolute heart of the matter. Dragging creates this incredible amount of friction as an object scrapes along the ground. It's slow, it's inefficient. But rolling? Oh man, rolling changes everything. It dramatically cuts down that friction. It's the difference between fighting the ground and working with it. And you can see why, for a booming civilization like Sumeria, with its incredible cities like Uruk and Ur, this was a huge roadblock. They needed to move tons of grain from the fields, countless mud bricks for their temples, and all kinds of goods for trade. The old ways of doing things just weren't going to cut it anymore. They needed a breakthrough. And that breakthrough was what we can call the rolling revolution. The wheeled vehicle wasn't just a clever new gadget. It was a total game changer that finally cracked the code on efficient land transport. Now, here's something that's really important to understand. The genius here wasn't just inventing a round thing. No, it was the whole system. You need the wheels, of course, but you also need a sturdy axle to connect them and a platform on top to actually hold all your cargo. It's that combination that makes it work. And you can just forget any image you have of some fast, sleek chariot. The very first Sumerian vehicles were basically the ancient world's heavy-duty pickup trucks. They had these thick, solid wooden wheels and were pulled by strong, steady animals like oxen. Their whole purpose wasn't speed. It was about pure, simple hauling power. So once this technology is out there, it just starts to transform everything about Sumerian society. Seriously, from the ground up. This humble little cart becomes this powerful new engine for the economy, affecting everything from what people ate to how they built their homes. Let's start with farming. The impact here was huge, and it was fast. All of a sudden, you could haul massive loads of grain from the fields all the way back to the city storehouses way more efficiently. This meant you could support a much bigger population and organize farming on a scale that was impossible before. Then you've got trade. It gets a major upgrade too. Now, boats were still super important on the big rivers, like the Tigris and Euphrates, right? But these new carts, they could connect those river highways to all the towns and workshops further inland, creating this much bigger, more connected economy. And what about construction? I mean, how do you think they built those incredible ziggurats and massive city walls? You gotta move literally tons of mud brick, timber, and stone. Carts and wagons made these enormous projects actually manageable. The wheel wasn't just a handy tool. It was literally helping lay the foundations of the world's first great cities. But again, and this is so important to remember, this wasn't just one magic idea that popped up out of nowhere. The wheel was part of a whole technological system. It was a bunch of different, brilliant ideas all coming together perfectly. Just think about all the pieces for a second. First, you had to have the skill to craft wheels that were actually round and balanced. Then you had to figure out the whole axle concept so they could spin freely. Then you needed a stable frame on top that wouldn't just fall apart. And on top of all that, you had to figure out how to harness an animal to pull the whole thing. It's a true masterpiece of practical engineering when you break it down. And of course, we can't forget about geography. It played a massive part in all this. The super flat, open plains of Mesopotamia. Perfect, absolutely perfect terrain for this new technology. If you tried to use this in a really rocky, mountainous region, well, it wouldn't have been nearly as useful. This is a classic case of the right invention in the right place at the exact right time. This quote really just sums it all up perfectly. Imagine the difference between carrying bags one by one and loading them into a cart. Now imagine this for an entire city economy. I mean, wow. It wasn't just about making one person's job a little easier. It was about boosting the productive power of an entire civilization. And that humble, heavy Sumerian cart, that was just the beginning. It kicked off this incredible technological chain reaction that has been going and evolving for over 5,000 years in ways those first inventors could never, ever have imagined. Just look at this journey on the timeline. It's wild. You go from that solid wooden disc in Sumeria to the much lighter and faster spoked wheel a bit later. Then you jump forward to the invention of the automobile tire, and then all the way to today with the high-tech wheels rolling around on the surface of Mars. You can draw a direct line from that first cart to the Mars rover. It's just incredible. So if there's one big thing to take away from all this, it's that history-altering transformations, they don't always come from epic battles or famous kings. So often, they start with a really simple, practical solution to an everyday problem. Like, how do we get all this grain back to the city without breaking our backs? And that kind of leaves us with one last question to think about, right? If a simple circle of wood could totally reshape the ancient world, what are the seemingly simple inventions of our time that are quietly building the world of tomorrow? What's our modern-day Sumerian wheel? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.